You are listening to Countdown to Tiger Kickoff on the ETBU Sportsnet as we visit the head coach of the ETBU Tigers, Mark Sartain, prior to tonight's game versus Willamette University here in Salem, Oregon. Coach, I've heard several Tiger fans ask me, why a Friday night game in Salem, Oregon?
Well, it all hinges upon our travel arrangements, the availability of flights and return flights, and in order for us not to have to spend an additional night in a hotel, which runs the cost of the trip up even higher, they agreed to allow us to play on Friday night. So that's how it arrived there.
What do you do on a long road trip like this to keep the team fresh and being ready to play on such a short week of practice as well?
Well, you try to break the trip up, and of course when you're on a plane, sometimes that's difficult to do, but we do have a layover in Denver on the way in, on the way back, so that breaks the trip basically in half as far as time is concerned. And then when we arrive in Oregon, we've got a trip planned to the Nike headquarters there. We're going to tour that facility, and hopefully things like that just keep us alive and fresh, and allows us to walk around a little bit, not just get stagnant sitting on a plane for 6 or 7 hours at a time.
Before we talk about tonight's opponent, Willamette University, let's go back to last Saturday in Sherman, Texas, as the Tigers defeat Austin College 17-7 for the first win of the season. Tigers are now 1-1. It's always to get a win on the road, but it's also to see your team have some character to battle back from a 7-0 deficit and score 17 unanswered points to win.
Oh, absolutely. We're proud of the way we responded to that. Austin College did an incredible job of controlling the tempo of the game on us in the first half, and by the nature of their offense, part of their game plan, of course. We didn't get impatient. I was very proud of the young men. They didn't get discouraged or distressed, and came out in the second half and took control of the tempo of the game and reestablished our dominance, and of course went on for a much more decisive win probably than the score indicates.
Some of the players who had some good games for the Tigers on offense. Quarterback Seth Hubbard for Beckville, good day. 23 of 31 for 268 yards and 1 touchdown. Kwame Spikes, your wide receiver from Jasper, 10 receptions, was the most he's ever caught in a game in his career at ETBU, 113 yards. And then running back Toy Glover, a sophomore from Palmer, Texas. His first 100-yard rushing game for the year. You'd like to see more out of him, wouldn't you?
Well, sure. Tory is an up-and-coming force. He's just a sophomore. He's actually from Paradise, Texas. I made a mistake on the roster with him initially. He's corrected me a couple of times, but Toy's just a great football player, and he's sort of one of those guys that came in as a high school quarterback, and we experimented with him in a couple different places last year on the JV, and arrived at the running back position in the spring, and Toy came off the bench Saturday and did a really, really fine job. Got our first 100-yard rusher of the season, and Kwame did an exceptional job in receiving, coming off a week in which he was sick for most of the week. He was really suffering from allergies and things like that, really depleted. Proud of him for the effort that he put forth. And of course, Seth, we still got to stop throwing the ball to the other team quite as often, but he put up some nice numbers, and he's gonna continue to improve and continue to gain confidence as we move forward.
It appeared to me this game kind of was slow at the beginning. What do you attribute that to?
Well, Austin College's game plan was to bleed the clock, shorten the game. The nature of the offensive style they employ to take advantage of the top talent that they have and minimize the snap of the opponent. It actually, the first half took a little less than an hour to play, which is about 15, 18 minutes shorter than most college football games take for a half football.
Defensive play for the Tigers against Austin College. Jordan Hayes, another great game in the linebacker position, 11 tackles. Colin Pigskin, your defensive back from Beaumont, Baytown, 9 tackles and another pick on the season. Any other defensive players catch the coach's eye for good performances in the win against Austin College?
Quentin Thomas, defensive tackle from Gladewater, had probably his best game of his career. Quentin started several games for us last year and is a starter coming into this year. Just had a tremendous motor all day long, was really involved in a lot of plays, and sometimes the guys inside, especially Quentin being a smaller, a shorter stature guy, doesn't get noticed sometimes for his performance in there. It's kind of hidden in the rubble, but he had an incredible game.
You highlighted him last week on the Countdown Tiger show. He had a great game, and you mentioned his short stature. So I looked for it Saturday, and I actually saw what you're talking about. Absolutely. So hopefully the guys you'll highlight this week will have good games as well. And let's move to that segment we do each week. give you an opportunity, Coach, to talk about some on your coaching staff and two of your players who are on your roster from East Texas. First of all, which coach would you like to highlight this week?
Well, we'll talk about Coach Thad Fortune. Thad's one of our own homegrown ETBU graduate alumni and was actually my first quarterback here in 2007. Thad came back 3 years ago to join our staff and has coached our quarterbacks ever since and has done an incredible job. Actually, the first year he coached wide receivers for us. That was the position we had available at the time. But Thad has a real firm grasp on our offense, our philosophy, and of course bleeds blue and gold and is a great fit for us in recruiting. Is also a recruiting coordinator. A great young man to have on our staff that I know I can trust and count on for a role model for our young men, and that his motivation to do what he does is in that regard as well. So very strong believer, man of faith, great family, and tremendous asset to our program.
Now let's move and talk about two of your Tigers on your roster who have played high school ball in East Texas. Who would you like to highlight this week?
We'll talk about Ja'Cory Hunter from Bullard and Jacob Alford from Lindale. Ja'Cory is a sophomore, starting defensive end for us. One of several sophomores we've got starting for us this year. Ja'Cory had an incredible off season, has really worked himself into a much more physically capable position, and has been playing really well the last couple of weeks. He's a very physical player, aggressive player, another incredible Christian young man that's a great representation of our program both on and off the field and on our campus. Ja'Cory works in camps and mission work all through the summer. Just an incredible young man, and it's always good to see those young men succeed on the field as well. Jacob Alford, an equally neat kid, just an incredible young man to have in the program, devoted to this team, a great teammate. Jacob from Lindale is a junior. It's his first year to start for us at center. Saw a lot of playing time last year behind Chance Johnson, who was a senior last year and is more than ready for the task of leading that offensive line through a successful season this year.
Well, Coach, thank you for highlighting Thad Fortune, Ja'Cory Hunter, and Jacob Alford this week. Now let's talk about your opponent tonight here in Salem, Oregon. Willamette University, the Bearcats. They're 1-0. They had an open week last week. They beat American Southwest Conference member Hardin-Simmons 58-34. Tell us a little about the team you'll be facing tonight up here in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, Willamette's an extremely good football team. I mean, we've been impressed with them on video, watching them against Hardin-Simmons. They're large, physically large. They're athletic. They're very disciplined. They play extremely hard, and they're aggressive. There's no glaring weaknesses in this football team. They're a senior-laden football team, very experienced and mature, and you can tell without watching very much video they're very well coached. And so it's going to be a challenge for us. They're a good football team. We liken them to a team we played a couple of years ago from Wisconsin lacrosse. They're very similar in stature and the type of athletes that they have in the positions, and also the style of offense and defense that they employ.
I don't want you to give away your game plan, but some of the keys that the Tigers have to do for a victory.
Well, we've got to be the aggressor. We've got to be the initiator. We call it being the hammer, not the nail, because these guys will certainly grab the hammer if you let them. And we've got to minimize our mistakes. We can't give them any more cracks at us than is absolutely necessary.
Well, Coach Sartain, thank you for your time on this segment of Countdown to Tiger Kickoff. Back to the best of the Tigers this evening.
Thanks, Mike.
You've been listening to Countdown to Tiger Kickoff here on the ETBU Sports Net. Don't go away, because coming up is the kickoff live from Salem, Oregon with Adam Ledyard in just a moment.